Hello lovelies, how are you? Dr. Lucy, just after 5. I'm running a little late tonight. Good reason, I had a little nap. So about 3 o'clock, something like that, I put on stories about I was super tired. Like not just a little bit tired, really dog tired. And I thought, okay, I can either plow on, which is what I would normally do, or I can actually go and look after my body and snuggle into my hoodie and have a little nap. So that's exactly what I did. And I set my alarm for 45 minutes because 45 minutes is a good nap. And I don't know what happened, but anyway, 90 minutes later. So 2 sleep cycles I've had, and you know what? I feel magnificent. Hey Clara, darling, how are you? So I'm now full of beans, and it's 5 o'clock. I probably won't have a sleep. I'll probably go to bed late again tonight, but you know what? I feel so much better. So I think we often have this just drive to push on when really it's actually about taking care of ourselves. So anyway, as I've woken up, I'm in my hoodie and part of me is going, oh, Lucy, you can't do a cooking show in your hoodie. I mean, look, you look enormous. But then I thought, you know what? Who cares? Because at the end of the day, I'm snuggly. The house is still cold because there's nobody home and I've been having a little nap. So who cares what it is? And I just think that it's really important to not be totally obsessed with how we look. So yes, it's, I reckon if I had an agency or something like that, they would go, oh my God, Lucy, you cannot be a weight loss doctor doing a cooking show in a garment that makes you look like a tent. And I thought, oh, actually, yes, I can, because I'm the boss of me and I can do whatever I like. So there we go. Now, tonight I'm actually cooking a vegetarian dish, which is weird because I don't really cook vegetarian dishes. But here's the deal, right? I have 2 vegetarian daughters, and about 12 months ago, I decided that I wasn't going to cook dinner for them anymore. What I said to them was, you know what? You can eat what I'm having if you want to. I'm cooking every night from scratch, beautiful, nutritious food, but if you don't want to eat it, well, that's up to you. And I'm not doing 2 meals. Because you know what? I had to put myself first. I was running ragged. And my girls have got more time. They're sitting at home. They're older. So this time they're now 17 and 20. So they were 16 and 19. Last year I ordered them one of those meal delivery services for a couple of weeks to get them used to the idea of, oh my God, you actually can chop. It's quite amazing. I'm just going to go and turn that off because you guys who with Thermomixes will know what that is. It's the Thermi cooking because I've cooked some boiled eggs. I'll be back in a minute. So I'm just going to dump this over here. I have a Thermomix. I don't actually use it that much. I use it a little bit, more than I thought I probably would. It is probably the world's most expensive egg boiler, but it bloody makes good boiled eggs. Anyway, so they're for part of the meal later. So what I'm going to do though tonight is I'm actually going to show you a vegetarian dish and then discuss the proteins. Because our build a plate formula, you pick your protein, you add some veggies, you add a bit of fat and you add some flavour. So I've got my, standard selection of veggies, which includes my frozen onions, since I really hate chopping onion. And I've just tossed it around in the fridge. Now these are not, I'm actually cooking a vegetarian curry, and these are really traditionally Mediterranean food, but it doesn't matter. Zucchini, a capsicum, and a bit of broccoli. So they're my veggies. Then I've got to pick my protein. So veggies and protein are tricky because I had a look and I go, rightio, vegetarians, what do they often eat? Lentils. So this tin of lentils have per 100 grams, 6.8 grams of protein for 100 grams. Now meat has, depending on your cut, but it has about 23 grams of protein. That's both stickin' and shake, the famous stickin' and shake. So chicken and steak both have about 23 grams of protein per 100 grams of meat. This has 6 grams of protein. Not quite as good. Now this stuff, God. Okay, so this is tempeh. Now this is, it's processed, okay? At least it's not pretending to be meat. It doesn't say, you know, meatless meat or whatever they're saying on a lot of these absolutely atrocious concoctions that they're selling to vegetarians. So tempeh is soy. We don't eat a lot of soy in our house. Again, a little bit is not too bad. I'm mindful of eating a lot of soy for lots of reasons. None of them are, none of them are really fundamental, but they all add up. So soy is produced as a monocrop. It has destroyed thousands and thousands of hectares, tens of thousands of hectares of rainforest to produce soy, which is then used to not just feed humans, but feed cattle and feed chickens and feed everything else. It's the monoculture bit that's problematic for the soil. Lots of soy. Is it estrogenic? Well, of course, it is a phytoestrogen. It's really good if you're menopausal. We know that women in Japan don't get as many menopause symptoms because of the amount of soy they eat. So for a menopausal woman whose estrogen levels are decreasing, then the phytoestrogens found in soy are great. But if you're not a menopausal woman, I wouldn't be eating truckloads of it. I'm happy to have it now and then. Now, remember, I'm feeding my vegetarians who are not insulin resistant because the carb count in tempeh is hardly any. So what is in this stuff? So tempeh has 13 grams of protein, way better than the lentils, but nowhere near as good as the meat. Now, if you have a look at it, it looks like goop. I don't know if you can see it there. It really is. It's just goop. It's not very tasty, but it will absorb the flavour of what I'm cooking. So I'm going to add this. I'm not adding these. These are going over here. And then the second component of protein that I'm adding for my lovely darlings is peanut butter. I use this brand Mavis. It's just got peanut butter. It doesn't have any vegetable oils with it. There is another brand, and I've talked about it, 99 Monkeys or something like that it's called. I just never happened to have bought it, but I believe it's very good. Now, obviously, yes, Clara, it is like tofu. It is, but it's fermented. So it does have that little bit of bonus of a fermented product. Oh my God, you girls are going to be laughing your heads off because just over here is a cat. Get off. He's sitting on the chair looking. Anyway, go, you're too close. Come on. This is a very important kitchen. I don't know this film crew. Seriously, they're going to get a sack in a minute. What sort of film crew let cats in? So this is fermented a bit like tofu. Back to the peanut butter. Now, peanut butter, okay, a couple of things to say about peanut butter. It is a legume. It's not a nut. For a lot of people, it's one of the most common allergens, and people are allergic to the protein in the peanuts. So we've got to be obviously very mindful of that for people with peanut allergy. But do you want to know what? 25 grams of protein per 100 grams. Now, you're probably not going to eat 100 grams of peanut butter because that will be a fair bit. And 100 grams of peanut butter has 13 grams of carbs. So it does come with some carbs as well. So just be mindful. Again, if you're insulin resistant, we need to keep our carbs low. If you're like my, very flexible, metabolically flexible children, the carbs are not a problem for them. So you can see what I'm making, can't you? A bit of a satay. And then I'm going to add some egg. And people go, what? Egg in with curry? How disgusting. Unless it's curried eggs, in which case it's delicious. But gado. So that's like that basically an Indonesian curry. Indonesian peanuts and eggs. I'm thinking, awesome. I'm just making a bit of that. And then for the fat, okay, so we've got the protein, we've got the veggies. The fat is going to be this coconut cream, one of my faves, as you know. Now, it has bugger all protein. It's got 3 grams per 100, so I guess we probably shouldn't be too stingy. It's actually about the same as cream, so a cream's probably only got about 2.5 as well. So, you know, a bit of protein, not a bucket load. And then for flavour, of course, a bit of mingle satay. Remember last week, I think, was it last week or the week before, I actually used a curry in a hurry and said you can use that if you want to make a satay and you haven't got this particular one. This one's not in the supermarket. The curry, the plain curry, I think it's called curry in a hurry, is in the supermarket, so that's always good. Right, bloody hell, I've been yakking and we haven't even got started on the cooking. So this is what I normally do, is I normally have started by now. So I don't know what, it must be the cold, it must be the woody, whatever. Now, I've got a couple of funny stories to tell you, as you know. So, one of my stories, it's really interesting. So, part of the reason I was tired this morning, this afternoon, was actually woke up at about 5:30. I'm not normally a morning person, as you girls know. It was lucky because the sunrise in Melbourne was magnificent. It's about the only thing that is magnificent in Melbourne at the moment because we are all in lockdown, so that's all a bit sad. But the sunrise was magnificent, so that made me happy. But I got up because I'd been mulling in my mind about a little article I read on the weekend. Now, you know me, I've got one of those high horses or a goat, and a lot of things get on my goat. So this was something that got on my goat, and it was about a guy. He's a doctor in England. He's, I think, very, I've never seen him, I don't know him, but I think he's probably quite charismatic, young guy, blonde, long hair. I reckon a bit like a blonde Russell Brand is my thoughts. And anyway, he's on talking about, weight management, which is great. But interestingly, what he's saying, and a lot of what he says I agree with, because as you know, we are massive believers in that weight loss should not be punitive. There is not a punitive component to the way we talk to ourselves, to the way we approach losing weight, to the way we approach getting well. But what this guy said was that, we should stop carrying on if we've all been he said we should stop carrying on about COVID kilos, because let's face it, it's been hard and we've all been, managing, and we should actually just be very pleased with ourselves for getting through a pandemic. Which on one hand, I kind of go, yeah, I kind of get where you're coming from, dude. But on the other hand, I'm thinking, I see dozens of people every month who have emotional eating issues. His thing was saying, let's stop carrying on about emotional eating and just accept we do it. I'm like, okay, I get that, but it's a tool that's no longer helpful for us. So we can't just sort of say, oh, well, it's a pandemic, I'm just going to eat what I want because that's how I'm coping. I mean, we can say that if we want, but it's a tool that's not actually helping us. So rather than going, yeah, we just need to congratulate ourselves for getting through a pandemic, we absolutely do that. I mean, bloody hell, here we are in lockdown. What we need to be doing is having the conversation that emotional eating is something that we all have been taught to do. It is modelled in our society. It is condoned in our society. And it is a tool that for a lot of people is no longer helpful. A bit like not having a spoon is a tool that I need. And I'm just going to get one. So just hold that thought for a sec. I can't believe I forgot my spoon, which really, if I start thinking about it like a microphone, then I'm never going to get it. So on one hand, I kind of get the sentiment, because as you know, we absolutely believe that guilt and shame has no place. You cannot berate yourself thin, you cannot hate yourself well, I'm very happy I've got this spoon to make my points. But we also can't just give ourselves a hall pass to do behaviour that is really unhelpful for our body. So this idea that we are prepared to sacrifice our body to appease our mind. So this is what woke me up. Because you know me, I love a rant. And I thought, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I don't need to be ridiculous here, because I reckon 90% of what he's saying is great. Because Mary and I are sick of the punitive, barbaric treatment that people do in this quest to lose weight. But on the other side of the coin, we can't pretend that it's not a problem. The name of my peanut butter is Mayvers, M-A-Y-V-E-R-S, another Australian company. So anyway, while I'm chatting, I'm just flinging in, this is just an eggplant. Again, you choose whatever vegetables you like, because you're the boss of you. You get to choose what you want and what's in your fridge. So anyway, what I decided to do, and in amongst this other article, was another nutritionist, a younger woman, who has, and both these people have massive Instagram followings. And this is one of the things that sort of bugs me, because, and maybe I'm just being a total cow because we don't have a big Instagram following, but if you want to follow us on Instagram, that'd be lovely. We don't even have 1,000 followers yet, which is like some sort of pathetic amount apparently in Instagram land. I wouldn't know, not a super Instagrammer, but I just know that it's a way to get your message out. So again, massive Instagram followings there. People are likely to be younger followers. Younger people are more likely to be metabolically flexible. Younger people some of them have insulin resistance. We certainly see that in particularly girls with PCOS. They have insulin resistance, but the majority of people develop their insulin resistance in their 40s and 50s. So anyway, so one of their things was also this person who, gets on and starts talking about, fad diets, like cutting out your carbs. And of course, me, it's like some sort of red rag to a bull. So again, I was waking up being bullish, thinking, well, this is just ridiculous. So anyway, the long and the short of it was I wrote to the journo, and I basically put my point of view across and said, I hear what you're saying, I like the sentiment, we don't need to be shameful and guilt, but we also don't need to just kind of go, oh, well, it's stressful, I'm just going to eat what I want, because life is stressful and that's unhelpful. So, I'm just turning this down a bit because I'm on my rant and I don't want to burn the dinner. So, it comes back to this concept that Mary and I are always talking about. The treatment, and I really dislike the word obesity. It is a medical term, okay? Now, technically, and this is another whole thing, obesity is technically described as anybody with a BMI over 30 or over. But that's actually just an arbitrary number. It actually means rubbish. It means nothing. And interestingly, we know in Asian cultures and often in Indian cultures, the BMI is lower for them to become metabolically unwell. So remember, metabolically unwell really is, the definition of that is insulin resistance. Because you can have a normal BMI. When I say normal, it might be say 27, so you're just a bit overweight. But if you're Asian, or if you're Indian, or if you're Indigenous Australian, or if you're a Pacific Islander, that is likely to mean that you still have insulin resistance. It all depends on where you store that fat. So I'm really having a rant. Anyway, so our favourite line is that the treatment, I'm going to stop for this one. The treatment of obesity is different to the prevention. And what do I mean by that? Well, to prevent obesity or prevent metabolically unwellness, which is really what we're interested in doing. And as I step gracefully over here to get a spoon. So this whole big deal about weight, and let's talk, we're not talking, I mean, weight again, you know, we often want to talk about fat, not weight. The problem, and this is the line that we have to walk, is that people get obsessed with talking about the number on the scales, and that's their only source of success, the number on the scales. And that's actually a really unhelpful way of thinking about it. It's really about the process of developing good health, and that looks different for people who are metabolically flexible and people who aren't. So if you're metabolically flexible, you can eat many more carbs. We were talking about it, Mary and I, just today. I've got peanut butter on my finger, so do you reckon it's all right if I lick it? Because I'm going to. Mainly because I don't want to wipe it on my hoodie, because that would be a bit gross. So, you know, Mary's partner is a very active, lean man, and he can easily reduce his stored body fat. Whereas Mary, as you know, it's no secret, she has polycystic ovarian syndrome. It's in remission. She is prone to insulin resistance. If she goes over her carb amount for any period of time, let's say a couple of weeks, then she's going to be storing fat at a much greater rate. That's not her fault. That's her hormones doing that. So once you develop a significant fat storage, and your insulin's out of control, then that has follow-on effects for all your other hormones. So we really just then understand this idea that you are metabolically unwell. I'm just stirring this. So basically, what I've done here is I've put in the peanut butter. Oh, I did this last time. I nearly forgot to put the blended flavour in. I put in some peanut butter. How much have I put in? I reckon 150 grams for this particular dinner. I've put in a packet of Mingle. So if I'm adding up, I can add up the protein in this. See how clever I am? And I'm actually going to put in the whole tub of this tempeh stuff, which is, the tempeh is how many grams? 300 grams. So this means that this is basically nearly 40 grams of protein. I've put in 75, 80 grams of protein, and I reckon this will probably do 3 serves. So it's still not heaps compared to what I would have when I have my meat. Anyway, so I'm rambling, but the treatment of obesity is different to the prevention, and people, that is lost on people all the time, because then what they do is they offer people with obesity the same advice as they would give someone who's metabolically flexible, and it just doesn't help. I'm going to tell you, this doesn't look great, but anyway, I'm not eating it. It is basically mushed up soya beans. I can see them, and they're fermented, and they're in a little thing, and you basically just chop them into cubes. And what it does, it absorbs the flavour, which is why I'm putting it in with this very extensive amount of Mingle and the peanut butter. So that'll go in there. One of the things I'm going to tell you is that because I stopped cooking for them, when I do, they're very grateful. As opposed to before, I'm just reaching back from getting another tin of coconut cream. So now, remember the days where you cook and people go, oh, I don't want to eat that. That looks boring. We've had that again. I don't get that anymore. They go, oh my God, Mum, you've cooked for us. Thank you so much. So this is the other thing, as you know, my big favourite thing is, as women, we need to, and I know there's some blokes watching, but if you're a woman watching, we need to put ourselves first, okay? Because when we don't, when we just keep giving, we get taken for granted, we feel like rubbish, nobody looks after us, and at the end of the day, everyone else is off lovely and healthy, and we're left unhealthy, holding the can, stressed and miserable. Okay, so, well, this looks quite good now. I will show it to you. I know sometimes my camera angle is really good and sometimes it's not. So, so I wrote to this journal. This is me banging on back to my story. Basically, this is cooking and just Lucy's rambling. Can you hear the cat? She's banging up on the... I've got so many cats, it's crazy. So I wrote an email to her and said, listen, I'm going to just, respond to a couple of your things. I put in my credentials and said, here I am. I see lots and lots and lots of people for weight management. Weight management is about addressing the physiological causes. So again, if you're insulin resistant, cutting your carbs is going to be helpful. Does it mean zero carbs? No, that's the other thing when people go, oh, they're cutting out a whole food group. First of all, carbs are not a food group, they're a macronutrient. And second of all, we're not cutting them out. Sorry, but there's vegetables. The only way to completely have zero carbs is to actually only eat meat. Now, there are some people that do that. That's not me. I'm not into that. I like my veggies. I like having some variety. And I like the colour of my food. But I do know for some people, interestingly, it is quite helpful. Now look, here I am just getting my eggs out of the very expensive egg cooker. Because remember, this is going to go on top. So I'm going to make so it's an Indonesian, it's Lucy's Indonesian gado-gado with tempeh, an egg, peanuts. Lots of protein in there for the vegetarians because neither are carbitarians. So I wrote to her and said, listen, this is who I am. This is what I think. I think that, your English guy, whose name I've just temporarily forgotten, has some really good points. You're right, shame and guilt have no place in any wellness program. But don't add eggs, Clara's going. The egg is on top, Clara, like a gado-gado. It's on top for protein. You don't have to have it, but it is a very good way to add protein to a vegetarian meal. And, this actually looks really good. It's not cooked yet, so I'm not going to, pretend it's cooked. Wow, bang, 5 minutes, it's cooked. But it'll look the same when it is cooked. Look at that. Can you see it? You can't see all the colours. It probably just looks like poo brown mush to you. So I said, it's got a lot of good points, but we can't just go, well, it's stressful, so it's all right if I eat whatever I want, because that's not helpful to us, okay? It's not wrong. You haven't murdered anybody. It's just not helpful to your body, okay? So we just use words, helpful and unhelpful. It's not good, it's not bad, you're not naughty, you're not hopeless, you're not pathetic. It's just not helpful. So we go, okay, I need to come up with something helpful. So that's actually what we bang on about. What else do you do when you're trying to soothe? Learning strategies. That's what's helpful. And then, as I said, for the nutritionist, it's going on about don't cut out a whole food group. My thoughts are, you know what? If you're insulin resistant or you've got type 2 diabetes, I've seen these people, often call them Lazarus. They're very metabolically unwell. They're just cruising around, alive. They're not dying, they're not literally like Lazarus, but they're on 5 or 6 or 7 medications. Blood sugar's out of control, blood pressure that's not ideal, potential like a ticking time bomb, and then changing their food, helping their food. They stop medicine. They stop 4 or 5, maybe 6 medications. So, and that was the other thing that just really riled me, was that this doctor goes, he's actually written a book called Food Isn't Medicine. I'm thinking, no, mate, it can be medicine. It can be. And it can have the most profound impact on your health when you eat well. So when you choose, now, I think when we ditch the processed foods, ditch the amounts of sugar that we're all consuming, ditch the amounts of fruit juice that people are consuming. And when messaging, one day, maybe the government or somebody will hold food companies to account, where they won't be allowed to just use words like healthy, where the star chart thing, whatever it's called, the health star rating, doesn't have people from sanitariums sitting on the board deciding what goes on that star rating, where we actually just have beautiful, good, unbiased nutritional studies At the moment, nutritional science is fraught. It's terrible. The methodology is woeful. We have sensationalized headlines with things like, eggs cause diabetes, bang. So much misinformation, or as my good friend, Dr. Liz Fraser says, myth information. I love that. I think just get back to your basics. So it is so simple. Choose a protein, add some veggies, add some fat, and add some flavor. If you're insulin resistant, low carb. If you're not, you can have some extra carbs. It's fine for you guys. But for the majority of us who have a weight problem, we are insulin resistant. That's the scary bit. And unfortunately, 1/3 of Australians have a weight problem. So there's 1/3 who are going to be insulin resistant. It's 1/3 of people who need to reduce their carbohydrate in order to reduce that insulin and become metabolically well. Right, I reckon this might be cooked. Let's have a look. Nearly. So what I'm going to do, for those who don't want me to add an egg, look away. For those of you who are happy, you know what? Again, the eggs are like avocado. Will my egg be easy to peel? Will my avocado be brown? Who knows? It's what you get. As you know, one of the keys is not having super fresh eggs. Eggs, that are almost whisked out from the chicken and cooked that day. The shells are all going to stick to that. I'm going to plate this up now. Did you hear me just say then? I'm going to plate this up now. What a bit of MasterChef wankery that is. But I am going to plate it up because I want to show you how good it can look. And really, as I said, if you're a vegetarian, a lot of low-carb vegetarians rely heavily on eggs and cheese. Now, you don't have to put the egg on. For those who don't want egg, it's still pretty good without it. But for those who are looking for a little bit of extra protein, I'm just going to cut this over the top. Ta-da. Now, let me see if I can get the light on that right. Probably not. Anyway, it's a beautiful satay tempeh curry. Again, I did yak on, so cooked in about 20 minutes. Me yakking, me getting on my high horse, on my goat, whatever, and really just trying to cut through the noise. My lovelies, if this resonates with you, if you like what we say, please share it, because what we want is to spread the word, okay? So that people are not actually getting really biased or unhelpful advice, and that they're learning the tools that we all need to learn in order to be able to navigate through a world that is full of processed food, where food companies are like trying to jump on us every second. And that, that we can, and our our podcast episode last week was actually on people that shame you for eating well. So there's another little just roadblock to navigate. Podcast dropped today on the scales are a false god. Actually, I've got one more analogy to tell you before we go. I do love this spoon. The analogy that I've got to tell you is about the idea that, let's say you want to buy a house, right? So the goal is you've got to get a deposit for your house. Okay, so that's the goal. I need to save for a house deposit, or I need a house deposit. That's a bit like the goal is weight loss. Okay, now you want a house deposit. There's lots of ways to get a house deposit. You could win Tats Lotto, unlikely. You could go and, steal money from old ladies or old men, scamming them over the internet. Probably not very kind. You could work 15 jobs and sleep 3 hours a day. Or you could just plod along methodically, saving, adding up, counting your pennies, and you get to your goal. It's a bit like weight loss. You can have weight loss tats lotto, which is what everyone wants, nobody gets. You could do ridiculous starvation regimes where you calorie count and you will lose weight quickly, but it won't stay off. You could take some pretty brutal medications that are going to give you side effects. You could have weight loss surgery. Again, that's a whole nother kettle of fish. I see so many people with weight loss surgery who haven't addressed their mind and come back because it's the tool that they've always used of emotional eating, they still do. Or you could just follow good, sensible, low carb, real food eating, learn to manage your stress, learn to sleep well, learn to look after your gut, and learn to be a happy human. And then you will get there. You don't need to be keeping on measuring the number. It's like checking the bank account every 5 minutes just to see if there's a bit more in it. All right, lovelies, that'll do. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. And as I said, if you can, I would be so, so grateful if you would share this or our podcast. Just spread out our word. We're so, so passionate, and we will see you. I'll see you next week. Bye, darlings. I'll just schlep around because the film crew, I don't know, they're off chasing cats.